Hello guys, how are you? Today we're going to talk about indirect request. Remember that we saw this topic in the last book. However, today we're going to see it but with some different ways. First, a request is when you ask someone for a favor. In this case, the request is indirect because you are not asking the favor directly to that person. So imagine this situation. We have Pedro, we have Maria, and we have Juan. Pedro wants to ask a favor to Juan, but he sends the message with Maria. So, in this case, the request is indirect because Pedro is not asking that question directly to Juan. We have to observe what kind of request it is. For example, we have statements. Statements are simple messages, a sentence. Mary, you left your cell phone in my car. The message is for Juan. So Pedro is going to say, Juan, I need my money. Simple, that is a message. Juan, you need to buy a car, for example. So in that case, it's only a simple message that Pedro is sending to Juan. For that reason, it is a statement. If you want to send an indirect statement to someone, you could use this phrase. Could you tell? Because Pedro is talking to Maria. Maria, could you tell Juan that I need my money? Maria, could you tell Juan that he needs to buy a car? That is an indirect message. In that case, we only use the phrase and the message. But of course, you need to pay attention to the subject. Maria, could you tell Juan that he needs to buy a car? Simple message. But what happens when you have an imperative here? Remember that an imperative is when you give an order, when you give a command. Come here, go over there, open the door, close the window. In the imperatives, you don't need a subject. You only state the action. Come here, go over there, open the window. So, Mary, don't forget the students' reports. That is a command. That is a request, but it is imperative. When you have a request that is imperative, you need to use to. In this case, it's not to because it is negative. Check. Mary, don't forget the students' report. Can you tell Mary not to forget the students' reports? But imagine that I want to tell Juan, or Pedro wants to tell Juan an imperative, a command, an order. Juan, open the door. But it is indirect. So Pedro is going to say, Maria, could you tell Juan to open the door? Maria, could you tell Juan to open the door? I use could you tell and the infinitive to because it is a verb. Open is an action. Maria, could you tell Juan to open the door? So remember that when you have an action, you need the infinitive. When it is negative, you need not to. Juan, don't come late. The message is for Juan. Maria, could you tell Juan not to come late? What is the action? Come. For that reason, you need infinitive. To. Maria, could you tell Juan not to come late? So, when it is a normal message, a message, you left your phone in my car. You don't need anything. You only need the phrase, could you tell, and the normal message. But in this case, it is about action. For that reason, you need the infinitive to or not to if it is negative. Now, when it's about yes-no questions, for example, Juan, did you go to class yesterday? Remember, did you go to class yesterday? The answer is yes or no. Yes or no. So, Pedro asks Juan, Maria, could you ask Juan if he went to class yesterday? Because my question was in the simple past. But imagine that the question is in the present perfect like this. Mrs. Martin, have you graded our tests? I only need the phrase, could you ask? I need if, and the same sentence here, but in the present perfect because the question originally is in present perfect. So, when you have a request that it's a yes-no question, you always have to pay attention to the form. If it is in present, if it is in past, present perfect, present continuous, you have to pay attention to that because when you transfer the message, you need to use the same form, equal form. For example, in this case, you have, Mary, are you coming to the meeting? Are you coming to the meeting? In that case, when you transfer the message, you need to use the same structure. If you see, you have the option to use if or whether or not. That is the same. You could say, Maria, could you ask Juan whether or not he is coming to the meeting? Or you could also say, Maria, could you ask Juan if he is coming to the meeting? You have two options. You can use if or you can use whether or not. Remember, don't get confused. Just pay attention. When you have yes-no questions, you have to pay attention if it is present, past, future, present continuous. And when you transfer the message, you need to use the equal structure, the same structure. Now, the last part is about WH questions. Remember that the difference between yes-no questions and WH questions is that in the yes-no questions, you have the answer is yes or no. But in the WH questions, you need to give more information. So, for example, in this case, you have, where are you having lunch? If I want to ask Juan indirectly through Maria, I could say, Maria, could you ask Juan where he is having lunch? No, if you check here, where are you having lunch? I use he because Juan is he. And I don't use the same form for the question, a sentence. Where are you having lunch? Could you ask Juan where he is having lunch? Or this question, what time can I talk to you? What time can I talk to you? Maria, could you ask Juan what time I can talk to him? Maria, could you ask Juan what time I can talk to him? So if you check, if you remember the indirect questions, when you pass or transfer the message, you need the phrase, this form of a sentence.